This is the way.
What's going on, guys? Welcome. My name is Chris, aka RoboPack92, and you are watching This is the Waypoint, the one and only Star Wars discussion show right here on the Shared Screens Podcast Network. Somehow, RoboPack has returned. I've been gone a long time, and I'm very happy to be here again, boys. It is very good to see you. Joining me today, running the ones and twos, making sure we all look good and sound pretty. It's one Alec Bobko.
Hello, everybody. I've got the rest of the week off, so it's time to crack a beer with the boys.
Ooh, cracking a cold one.
The boys.
Cracking up a cold
We love
one
that.
with the boys. That's what I like.
Some
fucking
Haze Craft IPA.
Ooh,
Nice.
I love a good IPA. I'm excited to hear potential tasting notes once we're done with this with this here podcast. Calling in clearly all the way from whatever the name of the big evil planet was in The Rise of Skywalker that was super blue. Is Jordan D. Thank you, Exegol.
Exegol, yep.
Exxon, yeah.
Exxon, yeah.
Exxon Mobil.
Exegol, I don't know. Exegol Mustafar, boom. Chris, I think you've returned just in the nick of time because at my feet here is a little jar where I was going to start trying to clone you. So, you know, I might still keep that as a side project, but, listen, not for hosting duties.
Listen,
All the hair clippings you sent him, he's been keeping them.
I sent you those samples for personal use only, okay?
Yeah.
It's not meant for commercial use.
Thing is, I asked for a cheek swab. Mailman hands me a jar for what I thought was a jar full of mayo, bro.
Yeah, real talk.
Okay.
I had to start a new job just this week. In order to do that, I had to take my first ever drug test.
Oh, that's fun.
So it's the first time I've ever had to
What drugs did you test?
And doing all every single one of them. Methamphetamines.
Oh, nice.
The your run of the mill stuff, black tar, heroin, the little things.
Ooh,
But
wow.
it's like the first time I've ever had to
That
pee in a
sticks.
cup, and there's something so weird because they're not touching anything. Yeah, you have to do it in this room and they have all these things to make sure that you're not cheating or whatever. But I had to walk down a hall just carrying a cup of my own urine, and I was like, this is one of the weirdest feelings of my life.
That's surprising because I volunteered at a hospital when I was my senior year after my senior year of high school after graduation, and they drug test for that too because they don't want 18-year-old me sneaking oxys.
Right.
And so for that one, it's basically you are not allowed to handle you basically had to put it in a box near the toilet and walk out, and then they would go and collect it.
Yeah, they made me carry mine, and it was warm and gross. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And sadly, I know it's because we use a new platform now, but it does make me sad that we don't get a cool digital background from Jim Tasty.
Mm-hmm.
That said, did you just move, bro?
Like a month ago, 2 months ago.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not set of anything.
Brett has been in this apartment, and I think I think he's been repacking because I've seen more boxes appear in this background.
It's increasing. It's not decreasing.
I had stuff stacked around, and I was shifting stuff to get stuff out of boxes to do other things. So
I can't say much. The room I'm in, because I've been in this apartment for months now. The shot that you get is the only really organized part of the whole room. The rest of it is there's boxes and stuff over there. It's been real piecemeal. Don't let them make fun of you, Brett. I understand. That's how it goes. Sometimes you just got to move things until it feels right.
I am looking at furniture on Wayfair, so we're inching.
On Wayfair,
furniture is so much more expensive than I thought.
It's
It is because
disgusting. Because
I stream, and so I'm trying to get good stuff, and I'm like, man, the good stuff's expensive though.
Yeah.
I want to make it look nice. I gotta pay out the.
I think I used this shot that you can just see my dining room table back there.
Yeah, you gotta get nice furniture. Otherwise, your room might end up looking like the dorm rooms of one Dr. Pershing in the amnesty quarters. Real bare, real gray, real just run of the mill. Because this is a Star Wars show, and we talked about pee and furniture for a little longer than I would have liked. Today we're talking about episode 3 of The Mandalorian. As always, we like to just throw general impressions out there right off the rip. Brett, I want to hear, how'd you feel about episode 3?
Bro, they kind of hoodwinked us, man, and I didn't expect it in
We've been
this
Speckledorf.
show. Again, I loved it, so I wasn't like bummed about it, but yeah, it with Boba Fett, I expected but I was like, okay, like I understand they got to bring out the big hitter. With this show, they got us like a little slice of life of, Dr. Pershing, the big peepee,
I figured you were gonna. I figured you're probably gonna end up really liking this episode because it's a lot of Coruscant.
Yeah, it was good to be back. If I recall, it's just the first time we've been, I guess, Andor, but like, yeah, it's just we haven't gotten a lot of
post Return to the Jedi Coruscant, like specifically.
Yeah, and seeing how it was like they called out in the show, what was her name, Elias or something like that?
I don't remember.
Kane, something like that.
We'll call her Kane.
She was like, yeah, it's like the same, but it's different, and it's just
really interesting parallels.
They brought it up in Star Wars before of like how it, Mayfeld, like, the big picture sometimes doesn't really matter because nothing really changes in the day to day for a lot of folks, and so. Right. There might be less Palpatine statues, up in Coruscant, maybe more Jango statues now, but no, it's good to be back in Coruscant, post Return of the Jedi. Just being in that world was awesome. And this kind of like, it was just awesome episode. Not what I expected. Again, I talked about it last week. Like I was like, because with episode 1, Chris, I was like, oh man, are we going to take the whole freaking season to like go to Mandalore? And then episode 2, it's like, bam, we're in Mandalore. I was like, what? Because like, that's how I'm used to with the Mandalorian. And then now it's like, we've kind of been jumping around, and I like the unexpected ride so far.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely get this one. Hair is driving me nuts. We've definitely been bouncing around at a I don't want to say that the plot is moving at a crazy fast pace, but there is sort of like, usually we go into the Mandalorian kind of knowing sort of what the end goal is going to be, and it takes the season to get there. Whereas, the promise up front for season 3 was like, hey, we're going to Mandalore, we're going to do all this other stuff, and that happened in episode 2. And so now we're kind of already, we've seen a lot of this stuff in the show that was in the previews, that was in the trailers and stuff, was shown to us in these first three episodes, and so now we're at that really cool point that was like, where does this go from here, which is really, really exciting. Speaking of where did this go for here, here's where we're going. Is Alec Walco, tell me how you felt about episode 3 of The Mandalorian.
And I loved it. Like, it started off with such an amazing dogfight, and then I was actually talking to Billy the Door a bit while he was streaming, and he actually had a really good point where the middle chunk of this episode felt a lot like Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm like, once he said that, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that's like when that really clicked for me. It's like, yeah, really, it was like really that
real heavy, like societal stuff. A lot of
a
lot of Coruscant. We had a lot of Coruscant and Andor.
Yeah. But just like the overall vibes of like Andor, it had that in the middle, which I think like I've heard a lot of people say that this was kind of the episode that really like turned them around on Mandalorian. And I'm like, maybe it's because Andor was so good. So like, hey, people like that, let's put some of that in here.
Yeah, man. And it definitely has been a bit of like an adjustment period of going from something like Andor back to the sort of like cheesier, pulpier kind of Star Wars that the Mandalorian is. And I like all flavors of Star Wars, but I definitely had to kind of like turn a switch in my brain a bit and be like, okay, like this is a different thing.
It will never not be cool. It doesn't matter like what kind of aircraft, spaceship you're in, but when you go up and then you turn the engines off and you like drift down and start shooting back at the enemy, like
so rad.
It's always cool.
It's never not cool. Yeah.
Exactly, never not cool.
And they do it twice this episode, and it's rad both times. Like,
yeah, like putting the flap up and just. Yeah.
Oh, so fucking dope. I love it so much. Jordan, how'd you feel?
I think this was the best episode of the season so far. Granted, only 3 episodes in, but I think that this is definitely the highlight. First 2 episodes were like, I think good, but just, they
were there.
This one had the sauce.
Yeah, you had that sweet little greasy money blue salt on top of this one. You know what I mean?
And It's definitely the story in the middle, because that is the majority of the episode. But like even the stuff with Mando, like when he was jumping out and then used the jetpack at the last second just to like break his fall and get in his ship, like that shit was awesome.
Yeah, man.
But the middle stuff was really good, and it's just reminding me I need to get on the Andor train already, because I missed it when it was coming out. I just wasn't in like the headspace for it, and I got to get back into it.
S tier Star Wars Andor is.
That's what I'm
That
hearing.
shit is
I'm excited.
fucking awesome.
I'm excited. Yeah.
I think you'll really, really enjoy that. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate that. It's from my own personal opinions. I'm going to start with some quick impressions of the first 2 episodes, because I have been absent for a couple weeks. Which is to say, first 2 episodes are fine. I don't want to call them bad. I was just kind of disappointed just in it was like, it felt a little aimless. For the pacing of the first episode was super, super weird. And I really liked the second one. I think it needed to trim the fat in a couple parts, like going through the exact same shots on Mandalore twice felt a little, I was like, okay, just get there. But I did enjoy seeing Bo Katan in her sweet castle and stuff. That's RIP, by the way. And like getting the character development for the 2 of them, that obviously culminates in this episode, was great. But this is like Alex said, this is the episode that I'm all in now. I think I was kind of waiting for those hooks to get me, because we're at a really beautiful point where we have 2 Star Wars shows coming out every Wednesday, and Bad Batch has been firing off so hard that it's been overshadowing The Mandalorian for me personally. Especially when you look at last week's episode, the moment you have a crosshair centric episode, I'm like, oh yeah, this shit's gonna be good, and it has been. And I think this is the one that finally I was like, yeah, Mando's back. I'm all in. This is really, really interesting. I love getting to see, like, post Return of the Jedi Coruscant, we get a good look into how the New Republic is operating post Empire, which is something that we still haven't really seen too much of, especially not from a really smaller down to earth scale, which is, your everyday workers. My man Dr. Pershing working in a booth, just cataloging data, and kind of getting to see how people like former members of the Empire who decided to turn are treated, and kind of the restrictions they have and stuff. But I mean, it's a fascinating look at the post Return of the Jedi world that we just hadn't been given yet, and I really like that. And then that chase scene at the beginning, so dope. Like, just starting off with a really, really great set piece. I want to shout out to I think the Mandalorian special effects are getting better. While I've enjoyed a lot of the flight chase scenes and stuff throughout the show in the past, it did kind of look a little TV-ish. This one looked really nice. It was really, really good.
And then I gotta give a shout out to the score again.
Yes,
just going off during that chase scene at the beginning.
Going off. Ludwig Göransson is a genius, and I love him, and he's absolutely killing it. Speaking of score, this is one of my favorite parts of the show, where we go through the notes that I had and go on some talking notes. One of my favorite things is at one point on Coruscant, we get to see like this kind of like festival thing that's happening, right? Mm-hmm. They're hanging out, they're eating glowing ice cream or whatever, which was really cool. I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars' dedication. Is like, what if it was food, like Earth food, but it glows?
It's kind of their aesthetic with everything, because like I noticed that like they still have 6-packs in Star Wars, but instead of being this way, they're just 2 cans, like,
which are so cool. By the way, I saw those and I was like, I gotta have that, bro. Please start selling that at Galaxy's Edge or something. They like pop off and the top pops off. I'm like,
But no, Star Wars is a commitment to what type of technology they have. Is something else I want to get back to when we talk about the very end.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But a couple of things that I really loved just kind of about that festival scene and its glowing ice cream was that one is the festival scene was yet another one of Ralph McQuarrie's pieces kind of brought to life. Ralph McQuarrie did concept art for Coruscant way back in the day for Return of the Jedi. And that concept art was essentially turned into this little festival, and so you walk around and it's just Ralph McQuarrie, and I love how colorful and vibrant Coruscant looks in comparison to the really gray and brutalist version that we saw in Andor. It's a really nice contrast to what Coruscant looks like under the Empire versus what it does under the New Republic.
I'll say honestly, even in the prequels too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We kind of got back to that. I missed those Coruscant green screens, the big wide sweeping overhead shots as they walk into the opera house. It was a prequel as fuck, dude. I loved that. But while they're there on the festival, and what's her name? Whose names we can't remember? Kane. I think we agreed to call her until we remember what her name is. When she's talking to Pershing about it, it's like, hey, what if we just got you some stuff, right? What if you just went and got some of the stuff you need? The score, the music that's playing in the background as like part of the festival music is actually almost like a carnival version of the March of the Resistance theme. That's playing in the carnival while they're there. I was like, oh. I was really hoping that they were using it to show that because when she's like, hey, the New Republic's good, but we're trying to do something bigger. And of course, this turned out to be different later. But with the March of the Resistance theme, I was like, she's going to be part of the Resistance, and then very much is not. It turns out no. Turns out no. That is it is not. Very much is not that.
That took a turn. Yeah, I did not expect that.
I wasn't ready.
I thought she was. I thought she was like in cahoots with Gideon still or something. But
I mean, she might be right.
Yeah,
like it very clearly looks like to me like she influenced him to go get like, hey, go get the stuff you need for your research so you can go do it. And then she's like, all right, bye, see you later. I have your things now. And put him in the mind flayer.
And turned it up because like they weren't. I mean, I guess more like they said like, yeah, we're not turning it up to like the mind melting setting.
Yeah, we're just gonna.
And then you just see her just crank it up to 11.
I think she's mind melding so that he's like super compliant with.
Oh, for sure.
Like the Imperial Remnant. Because it did seem like he did want to atone, right? And
he felt genuine to me.
Yeah, and she's like, all right, let me use this opportunity to flay this dude, and
let me just flay this guy real quick,
and like really, so to like make his mind more malleable to like the indoctrination of Gideon. Because they were like talking about Gideon, like he's like he escaped or whatever. Like
he got out. Yeah, he's not in.
I want to know more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was such a quick line too, but I like the way that sets up the idea that I was like, he's still out there now. Yeah, like we're probably going to see him return at some point, especially with so much emphasis on her trying to get Pershing to return back to all the cloning shit, which was really interesting. Yeah.
I really liked the tension at that picnic table. Because I feel like at that point, we didn't know if he was faking being apologetic and wanted to do something like and switch back to the Empire. And we didn't know if they were on his side or if they were going to like rat him out or if it was the other way where he was truly wanting to atone. And, I just felt like you didn't know which way it was going to go at all. And so everybody was kind of walking on eggshells. And then the longer it went on, definitely the more interesting it got.
I did really like that conversation too of like kind of getting like a cool glimpse of like these people who used to work for the Empire and are coming in and it was tense too because I also sat there and almost took it as like a like they were almost testing him, right, to kind of see like, are you for real, like are you sure? But also I mean, maybe I'm the kind of person who's like, hey, bad people do bad things. It almost felt like they were kind of like recruiting him in a way. I was like, oh no, they're going to go do something against the Republic and they're trying to get him involved or something, right?
Yeah. And then I liked the conversation about them asking like, what did you miss? And he's like, well, they're like, we don't mean in that sense and I like that they said the everyday stuff because I remember when I was taking a class on like modern Europe in college, my teacher showed an interview of a bunch of like older people that all lived under like the more intense version of the Soviet Union in like the 60s and 70s and even before that, like kind of that whole run. And all of them were like, it's kind of like how nostalgia is a bitch sometimes where they were really only able to remember like the stuff they liked or like why life was simpler then. And then there's like some psychologists that also just go like, they also just might miss being young and like not hating waking up and their bones cracking with every movement type of thing. Like,
right.
And so I really like that conversation because it is just that thing that like people do. They just adjust to something. And so you find something small to like about it.
Well, especially
go ahead.
That table still, like they're all calling each other by like the numbers, not by their names.
Which is interesting, right? Because you don't see that really with the good guys, if you will, outside of
the clones.
The clones, yeah. And so I thought that was interesting that it almost felt a little like dehumanizing in a way.
Yeah.
the fact that all of the amnesty workers are referred to by names. So something else I just loved about that conversation there too is that something that's explored in a lot of like expanded universe material is kind of getting these more like ground views of essentially like the world of Star Wars outside of like its superheroes or its the super well-known characters. And it was I just like that scene for also just kind of being a reminder. I was like, yeah, the Empire was really, really horrible, but for some people it was just like a job. You know, and yeah, a lot of them sat around there like they kind of talked about it like old like coworkers, right? It's like, oh, do you remember like the shit we used to have to eat in our cafeteria or whatever? Like old veterans like complaining about their MREs, right? Which I thought was really cool. Another little detail I just like to that includes that scene, but also others is that when you see Dr. Pershing and then use like really any other like amnesty worker, his outform is very neat and clean and trimmed and proper. And everyone else, it's loose fitting or they got their jacket open or off, or they're just wearing a t-shirt and that sort of thing. I was like, some habits die hard, man. Like you're in there for the Empire. It makes me think of the fucking nerd kid from Andor.
Karn.
Yeah, Cyril Karn.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a really, really nice touch, but also like a cool, almost like diversion, I guess, to the idea of like we're really used to like the bad guys being real neat and proper and that sort of thing, and here we have this Imperial who is trying to essentially like make amends, but there's still something very Imperial about him post that life, which I thought was really cool. It never like completely goes away.
Yeah, like you hear stories about like people that were, whether it was like, oh, they went to war or they were in the military, or like you also hear about people that were like in jail for a longer period of time, where like there's some habits they learned there that they will never change. It's like stuff about like the way they like organize like their stuff in their room, or like their shoes are always lined up perfectly. And yeah, the dress goes into that as well.
Yeah, and if you guys are interested in kind of seeing more sides of Star Wars like that, I highly recommend checking out one of two books, either Star Wars Lost Stars or Star Wars Alphabet Squadron. Lost Stars covers the main trilogy, and Alphabet Squadron actually takes place around the same time as the Mandalorian, and you get to see the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant from the eyes of pilots, and you see a lot of again sort of the outer workings of these things, and yeah, you get to see Star Wars like not from Luke Skywalker's perspective or whatever. And so if that kind of thing is interesting to you, I highly recommend checking out both of those books. They're very, very good. I do want to move on from the Good Doctor, and we got to talk about I think the most intriguing, of course, it was a bit of a cliffhanger at the end there, which is, are we getting a Bo Katan like Death Watch redemption arc?
It kind of seemed that way.
Something I thought that was interesting about the previous episode is when she's talking to Din kind of about like some of the things that happened during Mandalore. She mentions like, yeah, me and my family, like we ran this place for a long time, right? But you know, we just couldn't stop fighting for like 5 minutes, and it all came crumbling down. And I was like, you conveniently left out that you were the one fighting, like you were kind of the reason for a lot of this, and you could tell that she bears a lot of the guilt for that still. And that weighs on her, because I mean, you know, she doesn't mention Satine at all in that point, and like if you've watched the Clone Wars, you get that sort of extra characterization for her there. But now I almost feel like we see her at a point where they're like, hey, welcome back to the followers of the Way, who were essentially like predecessors even of the Death Watch, right? It's really similar things going on between the two of them, and I've been trying to figure out what sort of trajectory that Bo Katan has in the show so far, just based off of the first couple episodes. And now I think we have the potential for her to be like, maybe I can't restore Mandalore to the way it was, but I can take it back to the way that I had tried to back when I was part of the Death Watch. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it looked like I didn't know how to like place it, but I think there could be a trajectory here where in episode 2, when Bo is watching Mando immerse himself in the waters, like it almost looked like she was in awe of like his conviction, and again, they do such a good job of this with like everyone wearing helmets most of the time, is like she kind of looked like she was buying into like the community again of the watch, because I think seeing that conviction of Mando, and then she's like in a really alone place right now, right? She lost her previous kind of group, and now she's all by herself, and that all the time in so many situations, right? That can be a breeding ground for like someone to jump into any kind of group. And so I don't know if she's like, that could be completely wrong, but I could see it like she's like, hey, like they want me, they want to take me in, and everybody needs community, right? So she might be back on the sauce.
That's interesting, because I think I disagree.
Okay.
Well, granted, have not watched Clone Wars, do not know like more of her personal backstory, but I got the vibe when because I feel like they made a point to point out that she was not saying this is the way with them. Sure. Like when they said it twice at the end, the audio mixing and the camera made a point to show that she wasn't saying it. I think she's being polite because they are very old fashioned, but as far as we know, like they're not hurting anyone with that mentality. Which I know is not like the best one-to-one, because that doesn't always happen in real life. But so I feel like she's being polite, and she's just like, well, the second I get off this planet, I'm going to take off my helmet, and I don't care that you guys will think I'm an outcast. But for now, she's being polite. And she's just, she's like, because she didn't like, I don't know. Is bathing in the water just going in it? Like, she didn't go in with the mindset of I'm here to bathe in it. Like, I don't know how Mandalorian baptisms work, but I think like if you accidentally walk through holy water, you're not suddenly baptized.
The way I looked at it was like she could have taken her helmet off at any point.
But he knows that's going to upset them. Like,
well, and he does point out specifically like, hey, don't take this off while you're in there.
Yeah.
He just said it would make things go smoother. I mean, Mando is obviously part of that covert for has been for a long time. And when he became an apostate, it's not like they were like, shooting, blasting at him. They were just like, yeah, you can't like hang here, man. You can't chill here. So, yeah, I think it's like, maybe not like she's just in an uncertain place right now, with everything that's going on, and so she's like she's just on the ride right now. Like, I'm not saying she's like totally bought in, but she's just
she's there.
I could see how she ends up actually going the other way, because I think everybody kind of expected that she would pull Mando out of that and have him be okay with more modern.
Because I guess I would like to clarify that I don't mean her like, hey, she's all in now, but this could be like kind of that first domino towards leading towards something new.
She still wants to lead and rule, and her last group left her. And what's better than being close to your enemy, which is technically Din Djarin still, because just an episode ago she was like, I'm gonna send him away for good or take care of him or something. She said something like that. So you got to stick close to your enemies, and if she can subvert and work through the covert to rise to the top of that covert, or alienate Din from the rest of them again, or do something like that, like and gain the Darksaber back through legitimate combat, that could be a path for her. And then she would have an army. She would have an army with that covert and other coverts that follow the way.
Well, one thing I thought was interesting with this episode, because it was specifically called The Convert, and I remember when that showed, I just assumed it was going to be Bo Katan, talk about that, but then, we get that whole middle section with the Doctor.
P.P. Pershing, yeah.
So, I just thought it was kind of a cool double meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think this was a really well-paced episode, really, really well shot, really, really well written. I think this was kind of like the heavy hitter that I was really waiting for the Mandalorian to deliver, and they did that in spades. I'm very excited to see where this goes. I believe we have 6 episodes left. There's 9 episodes this season. Does that sound right?
Are they usually 8, or is it 9 this time for this season?
I have no idea. Let's find out.
Because I just rewatched seasons 1 and 2, and it was episode 16 at the
'cause
end
this
of.
was 17 to start the season 3. Yeah, so that would make sense if it was 8.
Okay, yeah, 8 episodes, which leaves us with 5
Almost
more
halfway.
episodes.
Yeah,
we're
halfway.
almost at the halfway point, and like we kind of touched on earlier, it's cool to see like how much of the preview material like we've already burned through, and
Yeah.
a very interesting direction left at the end of this episode. So I want to ask from you, our beautiful, handsome, loyal viewers, how did you like episode 3? Where do you think the show is going to go from here? And aren't you glad it's Tom's Day? Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you at the next waypoint.
This is the way.